Welcome to CivilNet. My guest is a very special person, a friend, a visitor to Yerevan from the United States, Professor Khachig Tololyan, who is Professor of Comparative Literature at Wesleyan University in Connecticut, and is also the founding editor of Diaspora, a quarterly on diaspora studies. And Khachig, welcome.
Okay, thank you.
This is going to be a difficult conversation to conduct in CivilNet's 12-15-minute format, but here goes. You're a diaspora specialist, you're an Armenian who is of the diaspora, and you know, like Armenians here, Armenians there spend a good part of our coffee time discussing what we did, didn't do, should be doing. Mm-hmm. Recently, somebody consequential said, you know, I think the diaspora made a mistake and we've invested too much in Armenia. Look at what we got, look at the government. And my answer was, no, really, the diaspora didn't invest enough, not enough of a critical mass to instill faith, belief, new ways of doing things, and so forth. Instead of getting into the Armenian part of this discussion, should we talk about what other countries do?
Sure. There is developing, emerging, a theory of when do investments, if by that we mean primarily economic investments,
not necessarily
succeed. Well, let me just for a moment say the economic. What's turning out to be the case in the study of globalization and also in the study of investments made by particular diaspora communities is that you can't, so to speak, throw money at a country. You can't say, we have 20 million here, let's do something and scatter it all over. It turns out that money is effective only if in the locality there are people who are able to take it and run with it, people who know the country. The more we study globalization and the more we study cross-border economic transfers, we find that the key is the local switching point, the point that takes the money and switches it to places. My guess is that it's not a problem of the diaspora invested too much or too little, but that in Armenia there wasn't the individual and especially organizational
capacity,
infrastructure that could take money and direct it in the right ways. And even when there is such a thing, it can go wrong. The Chinese are famous because ever since 1979, when Deng Xiaoping opened up the economy, for the first 10 years of that success story, 85% of all investment to China came from Southeast Asian Chinese, Chinese from Thailand, Chinese from Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines. And they directed all of their investments to their relatives in southeastern China from which they came. And at first it was immensely successful because they had Guangxi, they call it, the reliable familial networks through which they could invest. And
remittances,
later,
the ones that we know well.
Well, it's not a remittance in the sense that it's not money you send
to your aunt.
To your aunt. It's, you go locally and you say to your second cousin, okay, you are my second cousin. I am going to trust you. You're not going to let me down. And Chinese familial networks are so powerful that they didn't. Plus, that meant I'm not going to build a factory anywhere in China. I'm going to build it near my hometown. My ancestors' cemetery is there. My living relatives are here. Okay, so that was extremely successful. After 10 years or so, however, it started deforming the economy because the concentration of industry in one place meant that the workers all came there, more money came there, and the Chinese government realized that was a problem. And in the next 20 years, first they moved the investments up towards Shanghai, Nanjing, and now they're moving it to the interior. That is to say, the government has to be able to persuade the diasporans to invest the money elsewhere, not just there. So the principle, however, is it's not how much or how little, it's whether diaspora savvy can hook up with local savvy that is both knowledgeable and, of course, reliable. It doesn't skim off more than a certain amount. And that's what I would say about that statement.
That is not the formula that we were able to find.
We were not, I don't think. I'm not an expert on how the money that came here failed to have the effect it did, but one hears stories. And
if we talk about investments not in the money context, but in the sense of buying into, becoming part of the solution, bringing capacity, taking the engagement seriously and not emotionally. You know, one theory is we did too much, and you know, look at what we got. And the other theory is mine, that we didn't do enough.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say that, again, there is no theory or general answer to that question. One can ask, what are examples of trying to become part of Armenia? Very commonly, people talk about the ARF's attempt to become part of the Armenian political scene. And how would you judge that story after this many years, this much money, this many? So I don't think I can generalize, and I'm not sure we're in a position to generalize. Who is the judge, and what is the perspective from which we can compare different investments?
Then let's go to other countries again. How else, what are the other sorts of serious engagement by diaspora in homeland? You gave the Chinese economic example.
Right, and not surprisingly, that's where the most interest has been. But there are attempts by certain well-organized diasporas, the Jewish is the most famous one, to invest in the country. The logic in Israel, for example, has been that American diaspora Jews especially have come to realize that the future definition of what a Jew is going to happen in some kind of tension between America and Israel. In Israel, as the right-wing conservatives and the Orthodox rabbis have increasingly seized control of that ideological apparatus, American Jews have started raising money, starting centers in Israel, because what they're essentially doing is they're saying, we need to culturally intervene in Israel, not to allow the dialogue to keep drifting to the right. So they're investing in both analytical centers and in the universities. They're even, I mean, there are diaspora people buying billboards advertising against things right-wing Israelis say. They've taken the struggle there. And of course, from Israel, some of them are taking the struggle to the diaspora. So engagement is a two-way street. Armenia hasn't been able to engage its diaspora in this way, but engagement is a two-way street. And you have to look at where people choose. It's once again a question of where do you hook up? You hook up so that your engagement both has an effect on the homeland and, importantly, has an effect on the diaspora people who come and stay and work there for a while. And in India, for example, that has been in some universities, and that is an attempt to link up so that Indians can come, Indian Americans can come to India to study, to do research, to also teach, but also to facilitate certain Indians coming to the United States. Fields we don't think about. History. Should history of Armenian people be written here, which is a feeling that many Armenian historians here have? People in certain academic positions in the US think they're in a better position to, so those kinds of engagements in our case have been polarized in a way that isn't useful. But what you would want is a circulation of people coming to both places, understanding perspective. I would want Armenian American or other non-Armenian historians who are going to write on Armenia to spend some time here and understand the point of view of the people here. And I would want some of these people here to learn enough English to come there and learn that point of view.
It seems to me part of the problem for us has been that we've spent a whole lot of time competing, trying to identify who is, was, will be the better Armenian, who is the true Armenian. You know, in one sense, diaspora, foreign countries have redefined some, and in another sense, Sovietness redefined some, and we spend a whole lot of time competing. Do other countries do this? Do other peoples do this? Who's the real Indian? The one in you know, Berkeley or the one in Delhi?
To the extent that I know, not in that language, but there is competition. Indians, for example, as you know, India is the world's last great country in which many gods are worshipped, not one. And although the Indian pantheon is general, different regions of India worship more intensely certain gods. The south, for example, is an area where Ganesh, the elephant god, is worshipped more often. So people express their commitments saying, I'm a better Indian by giving to a temple, a particular temple, let's say, not another temple. I don't know what the equivalent would be in Armenian life. But we have an intensification of that because I don't know whether it's the old Ramgavar Tashdakhtsagan, Antilias Echmiadzin, or other struggle, but I don't know how we decide that that's what matters. I keep trying to say to people, it's not which kind of Armenian you are, it's what you do. I mean, it's a very elementary, it doesn't take high theory to say this, but we do keep thinking in this direction, and it's incomprehensible to me. Even though I lived there all my life, I don't understand why this is a topic worthy of discussion.
And you would agree, though, that it has become a serious handicap, because instead of finding ways to do what you said earlier about joining the two savvies, we end up believing that we have to pick.
Right. You do have to pick in the sense that there isn't enough money and time to do everything, but you never pick on the basis of who's a good Armenian. You pick on the basis of where is there a project where your time, your energy, your money, your skills make sense. That's what investing properly means.
If I could convince Khachig Tololyan to periodically speak with us by Skype from Connecticut, perhaps we could talk about more of these other examples, really to try to figure out how 20 years later we can, if we want, look at some of our issues differently. Perhaps I can convince?
According to the New York Times, only 4% of adult Americans don't own a cell phone. I don't own a cell phone. I had Skype put in, but I have Skyped in my life once with a friend in California. I'm not a good bet for you because I'm not a digital person.
That's okay. I'm hoping the Republic of Armenia can change you. We've been speaking with Professor Khachig Tololyan, who is known as an expert on diasporas, founding editor of the Journal on Diaspora Studies, and a professor of comparative literature at Wesleyan University in Connecticut. Thank you, Khachig, and I really do hope we can continue the many, many, many aspects of this conversation.
Sure. They have IT people. They can come and teach me what to do with Skype.
There we go. Thank you for following CivilNet.